Good morning. This is Karen with NewClevelandRadio.net. And as you all know, I do a lot of entertainment um, interviews, podcasts with wonderful artists, and especially those that I find up in the Saratoga Springs area. And I have one of those phenomenal musicians, and we're going to find out where he's really from because when you hear his accent, you're going to know he's probably not originally from Saratoga Springs. So I have Assaf Gleisner with us, and it has taken weeks for us to connect, but that's because of your busy schedule. So give us a little bit of background.
So excited to be here. Yes, my name is Assaf Gleisner, and I am originally from Israel, born and raised, and I moved to New York when I was 23, 2007. Um, I went to New York to study jazz at SUNY Purchase Jazz Conservatory, so up in Westchester. Um, After a couple of years, I also started to do a lot of musical theater in the area, starting with a local theater, then a regional theater, and then eventually I wrote a couple of off-Broadway shows, some which are running right now. Two of them actually. So the two big ones that we wrote was Friends, the musical parody, and The Office, the musical parody, which The Office was the first musical to reopen since COVID. So we
How
have that title
terrific.
for us, yay.
Well, I didn't know about The Office. I knew about Friends.
Uh-huh.
Um, so you are hitting a huge market out there with The
Mm.
Office because that's just timeless.
Yeah, we it was actually interesting because we wrote other shows in addition. We did our first show was Full House the musical. Then we did 90210 the musical. We also did Cat Kardashians the musical, which was Cats and the Kardashians mixed together. That was one we it went up and down very quickly. And then we got picked up by a producer called Lynn Shore and Theater Mogul, that they actually approached us and asked us if we wanted to do Friends the Musical. And that's really what put us on the map. We opened it in an off-Broadway venue in Midtown. And we ran for over a year. And then we were in Vegas for an open air run, started a tour in North America, and we were about to actually start a tour internationally. It was about to open in Australia. I was translated to Mandarin to go to China, and then COVID just shut everything down.
Right.
Um, but while we were doing that, we also wrote The Office the musical that was running on off Broadway at the Theater Center, where the Fantastic ran forever. So we have those two shows, and what's really interesting is that every show we had the challenges, to make that show work. So the way I like to describe writing parodies, especially the ones that we wrote before Friends and Office, um, these are shows like 90210 and Full House. If anyone who's listening is old enough to remember those, I grew up on 90210. It was like I was in middle school at the time, and I was like, wow, that's what high school looks like. We're all
Yeah.
gonna look like 30 years old and have convertibles. It's awesome. Um, and then Full House, same thing. And I think people who used to watch those kind of look back and say, "Ah, I can't believe I enjoyed this show." Like, right? You look back like, why, what was the appeal there? Um, so it was a little easier in that regard to make fun of it and in a way butcher it, right? Or like really like roast the show and the people who watched it and the actors and everything. But when you talk about Friends or The Office, don't you dare
Right.
speak ill of Rachel and Ross, right? Like how
Right.
Michael is a saint, and all this. So we needed to, in a way, walk on eggshells a little bit to make fun of those shows, but at the same time not offend the viewers because they have such good, strong relationships with the characters.
Exactly.
So that was its own challenge, but
And we're
yeah.
also living in a world today where people get offended by you just saying hello. Or,
Mhm.
like I mentioned to you before we went online, I'm terrible with names. And, I can ask you, what's your name? How do you pronounce it? And as soon as I go to pronounce it, I pronounce it wrong. Um,
Mhm.
and these things aren't done intentionally, as you know, when you're
Of
writing.
course.
You just hope that hey, people will just realize that, hey, I have talents in other areas, maybe not in this
Mhm.
area.
Yeah.
But
It's actually is a good point what you were saying because when the office we were casting, Michael Scott, who's the main character, he is like his whole thing is to be offensive,
yeah,
right? And in a way, kind of like what you're saying, he's not doing it maliciously. Like the character isn't aware
right.
that the offended. Sometimes they even think like, oh, I'll be one of the, you know, I'll be one of the cool guys and make these offensive jokes, not realizing that it's completely out of touch. But and especially back then, like the climate was so, hot, was politically correct ways that we weren't sure how we're gonna get through it until we decided to just cast a woman for the role. So as opposed to having a 40-year-old white male saying misogynistic, racist jokes, something about having a female doing that was actually just a little like a softer blow.
Right.
And that really what did it. And we found this extraordinary actress, Sarah Mackenzie, and she was just, I mean, she did the role perfectly, and it was just so like, and we actually had to write, all the music for her range, and she had to sing in the lowest range, almost sound like a tenor, even though she was. It was just fantastic. So yeah, this actually came out great, and we're in a way thankful for what we were, what the situation was at the time.
So we're just hopefully coming off the pandemic, although when I listen to the news, I'm not sure where we are. But this past year had to have been difficult because here you
Mhm.
have these off Broadway shows that aren't playing. Um, and then when things reopen, it's limited audiences. Um, so, how has that affected your creative juices this past year?
Oh wow. What creative juices?
Ah, come
Uh,
on.
yeah, I mean, yeah, it was in February of 2019. Um, was it 19 or 20? I don't even,
2020.
oh my
Yeah.
God, wow.
Yeah.
I don't have any time.
That's
I
okay.
don't know what year we are anymore. In February of 2020, I probably had the busiest month I've ever had in my life. So yes, the office was running, about to go on tour. Friends was about to go on tour. And at the same time, Hilton Head Orchestra asked me to write a few arrangements, like within a week. Like it was like crazy deadline, and cabaret shows were coming up, and I just, I was almost like, I don't know why I kept saying yes to everything. It was like one of those, like, I can't say no to exciting projects, even though I have no more time to even fit in when I'm gonna eat. But
Yeah.
that's okay. And then everything got shut down, and it was a huge blow. I think, my wife and my wife is also a voice teacher, and a singer and a choreographer. So she just opened her own academy for teaching voice, and we're both doing very well. And actually, luckily, my wife was able to continue teaching online. So COVID, obviously impacted us, but compared to other people who really suffered economically, it didn't really make that much effect on us. But it was such a weird situation where, from having 10 or 15 things lined up and things to be stressful for. I had absolutely nothing. It was like my calendar was completely blank. Nobody was obviously approaching me, or I wasn't approaching anyone to write, because it feels like, what are we writing for? Like, we don't even know what is going to exist after all of this, and what is after going to even be. So I think for almost 8 months, I don't think I even did any musical anything. I think we all kind of started dabbling with live streaming and maybe do a show here and there, and but it was just a completely like blank. I don't know, like musically or creatively, we were at a complete blank.
Uh,
um
and and for those of us, who are stuck at home, okay,
mhm,
um, and not writing music or performing, we didn't understand in the beginning what this meant for all of you.
yeah.
It wasn't until maybe a month or two in, um, because I do so many of these interviews, I found, wait a second, like nobody wants to be interviewed
Mhm,
because they don't know if they even have a career right now. They're
right.
hoping they do, but they're not sure. Um, and then, like you said, there were others, who did a pivot and they said, well, I can do this either online
Mhm,
or social distancing in some way. And I know here in the Cleveland area, they started what they call more porch concerts.
mhm,
And it was for the neighborhood. And, you know, they were setting up GoFundMe's that, maybe bought them a loaf of bread that week.
mhm,
So it has been different.
yeah.
But in addition to your music, you've created hummus.
Yes.
Okay. So how do you go from music and musicals to food?
Well, funny enough, I got to know more and more restaurateurs and chefs and food makers that were professional musicians. So I don't know what it is about it, that it might be like, just there's some relationship there that I don't understand. But um yeah, so I think after a few months of just really not having anything to do, I had to keep myself busy somehow. And I think we all turned into chefs during this pandemic, because we all started cooking for ourselves in one way or another. And um also, I feel like, what's that show where they're just like saying, okay, you have these four ingredients, make me a meal,
Yeah.
and that's kind of what we felt like. It's basically because that was the only thing available in the grocery store. So we really started becoming creative with our food making. And I was always, growing up in Israel, I was very picky about hummus. Like, I wouldn't buy hummus in the store. I would not dare to make hummus, because I know what good hummus tastes like, and I know that it would never taste like that anywhere but Israel. And especially if I make it, I was never, bothered even trying, because I'm like, it's probably gonna suck. I'm gonna hate it. I will never eat my hummus. No, I should never serve it to anyone, because they don't, but again, like, so much free time. I came across a video that explains how to make a creamy hummus, not necessarily even the recipe. I didn't really follow that, but like, oh, the texture. Okay, let's try. So I started making that actually in New York in July. And another important event that happened during the pandemic is that we left New York in July. Our lease was up. Clearly, New York, there was nothing, nothing really was looking like it's going to reopen.
Right.
Our life didn't look like we're going to go back to normal anytime soon. And like, there's no reason to live where we are, in the conditions we are, in the rent that we're paying, for really just, to stay at home. So July came up, our lease came up, and we love Savannah. I play in Savannah every year for vocal competitions. So they fly me there every February. And every time I'm there, I fall in love with Savannah. And a year before the pandemic, my wife was actually competing in that vocal competition, and she became a semi-finalist. And so she fell in love with Savannah, and we're like, let's just move to Savannah. Like, we love Savannah.
Why
There's,
not?
it doesn't matter where we are now,
Right.
so let's go. And we did, and then we found out that a bunch of New York people who are also musicians and singers also moved to Savannah, just arbitrary, like
Interesting.
no one knew.
Yeah.
So we already had like this beautiful quarantine, and we call ourselves the quarantine because we were like just a team of people that's constantly together, and it was fun. But so we're moving to a new city. I'm already starting my hummus experiments, and then I made it to a few friends, and they all loved it. And we came up with, and I came up with this name because puns is just kind of my second language, and so I said, "Oh my God, we should call it Israeli hummus because it's Israeli and it's really
Oh, I
hummus." And
like that.
I was like, "Oh, this is really fun." It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
let's try it. So there was a really, really busy and fantastic farmers market down the street from where we live in Savannah. So I just came out and was like, "Hey, so what do we need to do if I wanted to sell something here?" It's like, "Well, why are you selling?" It's like, "Well, I'm thinking about making a hummus business." Like, "Oh my God, wow, that would be fantastic. We'll apply in November, and if we let you in, you'll start in January." It's like, "Oh, okay, great." So I applied in November because, like, why not? And then a couple of weeks after, I was like, "This is fantastic. Okay, when can you start?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, okay. So I need to contact the Department of Ag, find a kitchen, get the recipe, know how to even cook. I don't know, do I do it alone? What do I do? Like buy food?" Was like, I had no idea, like anything, what I'm gonna do. And we founded this commercial, like everything was actually extremely fast because I feel I probably all those departments were not really doing much because who in
Right.
his right mind will start a new food business,
Right.
an outdoor one when the pandemic's here? And I'm like, okay, let's do it. So we did, and like a couple of weeks in, we got all the permits and everything, and we went to a kitchen that was like an hour and a half away. That's the closest one we could find to cook it safely. And my wife and I went there for probably 12 hours. We cooked the hummus, we packaged it. It was 30 containers, and we were like, "Oh my God, I really hope we're gonna sell." We got to the farmers market and we sold out in 30 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And we're like, "Oh wow, yay." And then we tried and we made 90 containers the following week and we sold out in an hour and a half. And then I realized, wait, people actually enjoy hummus here, like a lot apparently.
Right.
And now our hummus business is like massive. We have 7 employees on payroll. We have, well, I'm about to purchase a kitchen. We move about 400 containers a week. We have a few wholesale accounts. We're starting one in Kentucky, starting one in Atlanta. We're starting to expand. It was really fun, actually. I think we'll talk a little bit about one of the biggest creative things I did during the pandemic. But I think in addition to that, I kind of enjoyed the being super occupied in something that is not related to music whatsoever. There was just
Interesting.
something about this that was just, first of all, knowing that I think a lot of musicians or artists struggle with, in a way, being blessed and cursed with a talent, because you kind of feel like, okay, well, great, I'm really good at this. This is awesome. People enjoy this. I can make it work. But is it the only thing that I can do in my life? And you get to a point where you don't really want to find out. Like, it's
Right.
like, okay, well, I'm now dependent on this art, dependent on this work, like, gotta pay the bills, fighting for my value, fighting to make people appreciate what artists do. And it's, you know, who has the time to even start a new career, right? So with that, like with the house, kind of just put me at ease that, like, you know, even during the pandemic, we can still reinvent ourselves and be fine. So that was
Absolutely.
a very comforting thing to learn. So
Well, it's funny because when I saw you posting that on Facebook, for years, my brother tried getting me to try hummus, and
mhm.
I love chickpeas. And he kept saying, "So you'll love this." And it just didn't like click.
Mm,
But a little over a year ago, I had to change my eating habits. And part of that was, even though I love salads, I can't use most dressings because they irritate the lining of my stomach. So
Yeah.
somebody said, why don't you purchase some plain hummus? You love chickpeas, and use a tablespoon of hummus in your salad.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it was like, this is a delicacy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember when I told him, he said, so why didn't you try it 10 years ago when I offered it to you? And I said, because it just looks different. And sometimes
Yeah.
when something looks different, it's like, I'm not sure. But so when you posted that, it was like, oh my God, from music to hummus. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah. I think it definitely becomes more and more popular here, hummus. But there are a lot of people that they swing by. It's like, what's hummus? And these are the most exciting people because I get to experiment through them what the first time of tasting hummus is.
I
It's just
love that.
it's really awesome. And then you get to explain a little bit about Israel and about the culture. And we also Savannah specifically is very local driven town. Like everything that is local automatically becomes the most popular thing. So we are actually really leaning into that and try to use as many local makers as we can. Like our olive oil is by a local company, our spice blends are by a local spice blend, our honey is from a local beehive. And um, so there's at at first when I started this, I was like, let's try and make some of this, whatever. And then I remember even I had to write a business plan, and the business plan had like, what is your mission? I'm like, mission? I don't know. I put hummus in containers. That's my mission. Like, But then you learn, like, wait, like your company, whatever it is, can definitely impact the community.
Right.
So with supporting local makers, we also pay higher wages to employees. We try to make it as comfortable as we can for them because retail business is just not, it's never a fun, like no one wakes up and say, I want to work in the kitchen for 8
Right.
hours. I want to sit in the sun and sell a product. Like no one really like wants it. So we try to acknowledge that and like make it as comfortable and as lucrative as we can for them. A lot of things, like I realize that you can really have some socialistic values through a company,
Absolutely.
especially through food, because everyone relates to food. um,
And I'm assuming a lot of this comes from your upbringing in Israel, because
mhm.
in Israel, people tend to be more, um, they don't seem to be like they are in the United States. I guess that's the best way they can put it. They're friendlier. Um, they tend to work together, and there is a lot of local shopping. It's not necessarily that you have to go to the big chain, to get your groceries.
Right,
And
right.
I'm trying to do more of that myself,
Mhm.
although in the Cleveland area, you have to really go searching for those
Really?
local markets. Yeah, they don't just pop up. I mean, when I visit Saratoga Springs, I'm always like amazed how many local shops there are, and then I come home and it's like, I have a big box store on my right and one on my left and one across the street. So
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's true. I think I always think of a scenario where in Israel, if if you need help, or like say your car gets stuck or something, everybody will come running toward you and start helping you. It's just like, what do you mean? Like, why are you just standing here? Come, do something. They
yeah,
might not know anything about cars, but they still look at the hood and like, so like, they're just like, can we do anything? There's something, it's very community driven. And I think, I am a socialist in the sense that I want to call myself a socialist capitalist because I don't necessarily I think that there's a big misconception on what socialism
absolutely.
here in America, where really all it is at least the way I see it is hoarding money doesn't do anything, right? So like if you just have a lot of money in your bank account, it doesn't matter anymore. Like the money just doesn't mean anything. Whereas like if we all just like give like find a some sort of a government, whether it's local or federal or even bigger, um, that we trust and say, okay, I've made enough for myself. I'm happy. I can live off of this. I can live off of this for years. Here's a portion of that to just support the ones that don't. That's really like, in any, whether it's healthcare or
Right.
unemployment or whatever. And you can even see that during COVID right now, like um, without unemployment and without the PPP loans and without, the SBA and all that stuff, the economy would completely crash. Somehow we were able to survive that, and it's because the reality was that if people don't get paid somehow, they're not going to live.
Exactly.
And that's the socialism that I support. I think we all, if that's something that they're interested in, we all should strive to make as much profit as we can, work and know our value and etc. But in order to do that, some of us just need a little, head start.
Absolutely.
That's all.
Well, we're taught when we're children, okay, to share kindness, to help out your neighbor. And as little kids, we tend to do that. But it seems like as we get older, it's like, well, this is mine and I earned it. Um, and I think if we could just be a little bit more generous, like you said, and say, okay, yeah, I've earned this, but because I've earned it, let me help you out.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's someone said something that really helped me change my point of view on life. I think specifically about money, because as freelance artists living in New York, you just do anything. You're just like,
Right.
okay, I don't know what this gig is, but it's a gig and I can't say no. I have to do it. Let's go. And they told me, like, don't approach money or your career from a place of scarcity. Come from it from a place of abundance. And that's a very interesting thing, because there is abundance of anything that you want. There's abundance of money, there's abundance of opportunities, there's abundance of things that you can do. Like, there isn't, like, we're not really limited, and it's not like, okay, like, we found this one thing, we somehow, people say, oh, I'm so lucky, I have this gig, I'm so fortunate. Like, you're not fortunate to have the gig, you earned it with your skills and your abilities. And if it wasn't for this gig, you would have earned a different one. So there's this feeling specifically, I feel like here more than other countries that I visited, that it's like, if you got something, just hold on to it and never let go, because once this disappears, no one else will ever call you, and this
Right.
will be the last
Exactly.
thing ever. And yeah, that's not true. That's never true. It's never true. And especially, I think COVID, like, was just at least my wake-up call, like, hey, I'll remember thinking to myself, like, if someone came to me in January or February and say, Assaf, why don't you take a year and a half off, cancel all your gigs, stay at home, and don't do anything. Just see what happens. I would be like, well, I'm probably going to starve to death, and that's it. But COVID literally said that.
Yep.
They came and said, stop everything, and we'll let you know. We'll let you know when you can go outside.
Right.
Now, stop with that. And wait, we're still here. Like, a lot of us are still here, and a lot of us are actually stronger, and just coming in from a better, better position. And so this was at least for me, my wake-up call to know, like, no, it's sharing is important, because if I make my colleagues stronger, and if I make my community stronger, we all win. We
Absolutely.
we can all support each other, and we all lift each other up. And that's the socialism that I'm, standing
I
for.
totally agree. So you are now in Florida
Yes.
because Friends is opening in Florida.
Hmm. Oh wait,
So,
no, Friends
no?
isn't opening in Florida. No,
Oh,
that's a different show. So
so what show is opening in Florida?
Kimberly Hockey, which
Oh, I love
will
her.
yes, we're gonna talk about her, because your brother is making her a star. with his beautiful, beautiful producing and all the things that he's doing. But Kim and I, she's a fantastic singer, also plays banjo. And we started a swing band about 10 years ago now. Wow, was it 10? Oh my God. Okay. A long time ago. And we have been invited to Florida every year in the past 6 years to, they would commission a cabaret show from us. And we would perform, it would be a cabaret series between 6 to 8 or 9 weeks, depends on like the
Sure.
timing and the schedule. We would do 9 shows a week, and we will write a show for every summer and perform it. So this is what we're doing now. So our first show was just all original music in that style. Second show was we call it Music of the Night, which was taking all Broadway songs, like famous musical theater songs, and swinging them. Our third show was Hollywood Serenade, which is tribute to all the classic MGM movies and movie musicals and big bands. Then COVID happened, so we had to skip a year, and now we're doing the jukebox musical. So jukebox Saturday night. So it's really the beginning of jukebox and how it impacted music, and like now we're kind of going into just a little further period, like a later period of swing and jazz. So that's what we're doing here, actually.
I see.
Yeah.
Well, we got to bring that to Cleveland. I have to tell you because I'm in love with Kimberly,
Hmm.
and I love what you said that my brother, producing We the Nighthawks, is helping her. No, she's helping herself. I mean, she's beautiful inside and out. Her
Mhm.
voice, um, and one of the things I told her when I podcasted with her, I sometimes have a very difficult time listening to music today
Hmm.
because you can't hear the performer. You hear all this music, you hear all
Mhm.
these high notes, low notes, whatever, and the music is beautiful. But if there's somebody singing, I want to hear the words, I want to hear their
Yeah.
voice. And with her, you can.
Hmm.
And, I applaud you as someone who writes the music to realize that, we need to hear it all. And when you can't, um, it it's frustrating, you know. So thank you for that because the last couple of concerts I've gone to, I just sit there going, what are they saying? And my husband just looks at me and he goes, well, if you can pick out one word, I'll pick out the next.
That's funny. Um, yeah, I think I mean this album we actually, so I said I was mentioning that I was kind of on a musical break during COVID, and this was the first creative thing I did since COVID. Leco Morris, who is a composer and also the person that put it all together, really is just an incredible human being and hard-working individual. Um, he and Justin Rivers wrote a few songs, um, and Leco said, "Hey, I wanna record this, and I want to work with Kim." He and Kim were childhood friends. Now they're a little more than that, more involved, and this is awesome. So it's just like one of those 90s rom-com, movies story. Um, and he approached me to just play through the songs with him and maybe do a recording, who knows. So at that moment, I think I was ready to attempt that. That was back in August, and we flew to New York, with 10 masks on our face, and whatever. Um, and we started working on these songs, and the more we work on it, the more we're like realizing this is not your typical let's go get a quick session in, record it, and see what happens. These are masterpieces in the making. And Leco did a fantastic job finding all the musicians, fundraising, like really like raising a lot of money to make this happen, reaching out to Joel Moss, which I think was the best thing that could have happened to us in our lives. And all of that during COVID. In fact, up until the last day, the day before we recorded, we actually went to a studio. We found a studio that was big enough to accommodate like 10, or I don't remember, was it 10 or 15 people in a room, all socially distanced, all wearing masks. It was just probably the most challenging thing we've ever done in our career, just because of the pandemic and accommodating for it. And even on the last day, we were like, our bass player thought he might have COVID. So after all of this, like, we're flying everybody from everywhere, and we didn't know what to do, but luckily he tested negative, so everything was fine. Yeah, it was just challenging, but I think with that and the energy and everybody just ready to play, like, I think it was the first time I played with other musicians since then March of that
Wow.
year, and it was just like the feeling was like, oh right, that's what we're doing this for, like that's what made us start. That was just incredible, and the album came out fantastic. And then several months later, Leko again, which is out to us, and said, so I wrote some Christmas songs, and we're gonna record those too. So that was a recent album that we're just now getting our final mixes. So we started that in July, literally Christmas in July. We went to the studio, recorded all the Christmas songs, which somehow I didn't even expect that, but it was even better than the first album. I don't know how that happened. I thought the first album was perfect. And I'm like, oh wow, these songs and these arrangements and this, you know. So yes, I was very fortunate to meet Leko, and I think that also we all kind of realized after this, it's like, that's kind of the only thing we really want to do. We want to make beautiful music. We want to make it in the album of our choice, like the studio of our choice, of the people that we choose. Like, this is like the highlight of our career, and we want to stick to that. So
Well,
yeah.
for everyone out there, please follow us on New Cleveland Radio because we follow all of you. Um, and we love your music. We love the energy. And I think that's what drew me um, to all of you. It was, I've had other musicians who will drop me a line or post something on Facebook for me to listen
Mhm.
to, and it's good. But this showed energy. And it was the energy that said, I can't wait till tomorrow to listen. I need to
Uh-huh.
listen now. Um, and that's why I've been pushing at you because it's like
Mhm.
you,
And thank you for doing that. It
yeah.
was just
I mean, you have so much talent, and I want people to understand that all of us have an ability to do something great. It may be music, it may be another art form, it could be in the sciences, it doesn't matter. But when you find it, you need to use it.
Yeah,
And
I totally agree.
I'm just impressed. And congratulations that your wife is doing all the great things that she's doing as well, because um, you know what? We're never too old or too young to make a difference.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I think we can always reinvent ourselves.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah.
Well, when you see Kimberly, give her a big hug for me.
Yes, I
Okay.
will.
Tell her that I can't wait. I'm hoping that we will be up in Saratoga Springs
Mhm.
around the Thanksgiving holidays. And if so, if she's back home at that time, I'm going to find a way to see her.
Well, we do have a CD release of New Noel in September. I'm sorry, December 12th. Um,
Okay.
so if you're in the area there, it's gonna be a gorgeous, gorgeous show.
Absolutely. I'm
Yeah.
sure it will be. Well, thank you again. Best of luck in Florida and keep us posted. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Karen.
Have a great day. Thanks.
Bye.